afternoon, and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Throughout the year, the University of Vermont is engaged in research that benefits Vermonters. One of the most visible examples is the UVM research vessel, the Melosira. The Melosira is docked at the Rubenstein Laboratory, where it provides immediate access to Lake Champlain. The boat and its equipment help support research related to the lake's geology, its fisheries, and its water quality. At the helm is an experienced captain whose background may surprise you. Across the fences, Rebecca Gollin spoke with Melosira Captain Steve Cluett.
Well, primarily I'm the captain of the research vessel here at UVM's waterfront lab, the Rubenstein lab. So the Melosira is a really important teaching tool and also a research tool on Lake Champlain. So that's my primary focus, being captain of the Melosira. At the same time, I also manage the fleet of smaller boats. We actually train students to use them in a safe way. And my third part of my equation is I'm manager at the Rubenstein lab. So that kind of covers a whole gamut of different skills, but primarily we're concerned about working on the water in a safe manner.
What was your education and training that led you to this job?
Well, like most people in their teens, you're kind of trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. I went to Northeastern University in Boston, which is known for their cooperative education program. I actually started out in medical technology, believe it or not, and that obviously quickly became not my choice. But an opportunity came up to work with the National Marine Fisheries Service, and I found myself working in a small fisheries lab in Milford, Connecticut. And that was the beginning. They had a small boat and a larger boat's part of the NOAA fleets, and a lot of times they were looking for people to go out and do the field work. A lot of the people at the lab were more than happy not to have to do that kind of work. And for me, it was just kind of a catharsis to be exposed to this and say, wait a minute, this is a whole new thing. And so through my time in Northeastern, I spent my whole time in the National Marine Fisheries Service, spent a lot of time at sea on commercial vessels. As a port agent, we'd actually interact with commercial fishermen, sample their catch and stuff. And then being young and a couple years out of college, I had to take the bait, if you will, and I actually became a commercial fisherman. It was pretty attractive, pretty fascinating life, and I did that for quite a while. Fishing back in the 80s was already on the slides in New England. And little did we know how much worse it could get, but because I did have a background in fisheries science, a job opened up in the Great Lakes looking for a fisheries research vessel captain, and it was almost like they wrote the job from my resume. So I had a captain's license. I had a background in biology, and I knew the whole operational side of this kind of work. So that got me into it. I've probably been doing this for close to 30 years, working on research vessels, and it's just been a fantastic experience.
So what was it like working on the Great Lakes? Where were you and what were you doing?
Well, I was in a little town called Cape Vincent, New York. It's right where the St. Lawrence River begins coming out of Lake Ontario, a tiny village of 400 people. There was a fishery station there for the state of New York, and we had a 50-foot research vessel. We did primarily fisheries assessment work up and down, mostly Lake Ontario, sometimes Lake Erie, sometimes the St. Lawrence River. I spent 13 years up there. I grew acclimated to the North Country, if you will. It became part of us. All my 3 kids were born up there. So it was kind of a natural transition when we thought about coming up to Vermont.
Size aside, what else is different about working in Lake Champlain than in Lake Ontario?
Well, it's kind of ironic to come here to Vermont and doing a lot back into freshwater biology and to see the connections with the work I did on Lake Ontario. For example, our stellar fisheries professor, Ella Marsden, she was a grad student working on Lake Ontario lake trout when I was a captain up there. So we go way back, and it gives me the privilege to tease her a lot, because I remember when she was just a grad student, and I always remind her when she's working with the grad students here. So those kind of connections have been cool. I've met a lot of people. Actually, next week we're going up to Lake Ontario to film some lake trout spawning shows. As comparing the two lakes, this lake is actually, as much as it's similar in the ways where it's a deep water, cold water lake, much like Superior, Michigan, Ontario, this lake is unique, and I think it has to do a lot with the watershed, the land surrounding it. There's such a large watershed. So much of Vermont drains to Lake Champlain, and that really defines the lake much differently than you'd say up on Lake Ontario, for example. There you actually have at least 5 large urban centers: Rochester, Hamilton, Toronto, Oshawa, these kind of places. You know, we're fortunate on Lake Champlain, it's a very natural area still. So you see that. It makes the issues on Lake Ontario a lot different than the issues on Lake Champlain. There you see organic chemical problems, PCB, Mirex contamination in fish. And for the most part, there again, we don't have to suffer those problems.
As you go out with different professors and students and classes, what are some of the key issues that you see on the lake?
Yeah, I mean, the lake's pretty diverse, you know, as far as just how you come out of different sciences are involved with, from water quality to geology. And so the beauty of working on a research field like this, I get to be immersed in all of it. And so I get to work with people like Ellen Marsden and some other wonderful professors. We even had a wonderful bird watching trip run by our assistant dean at the Rubenstein School, those kind of things. So it's a great experience. Some of the issues on the lake are pretty well known. You know, the nutrification of the lake and the algae blooms that it causes. You know, a lot of resources here at the Rubenstein Lab go into studying that problem, studying it from the point of view, what is the actual mechanism, to try and understand before you can start to say we need to regulate this or that. Really understanding the mechanism and the controls in place. So a lot of our work's been that. Ellen Marsden's lake trout work has been fantastic. We've seen this amazing resurgence of native lake trout. All lake trout in the last 50 years have been stocked in the lake, and now all of a sudden we're seeing natural recruitment. It's fantastic. You just don't see those kind of events happen. I keep telling people, you know, if you're into pop music, maybe Britney Spears dropping a new single is a big deal. For us, this is like a really big, you don't see this too often in your career, to see a resource like a fish stock to actually rebound. Those things, we do a lot of work with that. And a lot of what I do, and the reason I like the job so much, is because I'm on the operational side of science, but that lends me the ability to really support the work that needs to be done. So someone like Ellen Marsden might come out and say, I need to do this, this, or this. My experience of doing this so many years, I can say, how about if we try this, this, and this? And it's worked out very well, I think, for all of us.
What's the best part of your job?
For me, the best part of this job, and you know, after working at sea for close to 40 years now, I get to have winters off, which is wonderful, because I enjoy the North Country living. I enjoy the snow. But the best part for me working here at UVM is working at the Rubenstein Lab with the people I get to work with. The undergrads, the grad students, and the professors. It's like a very small family here. We're actually quite close, and we work very well together, and it's just a very positive environment. We also get to have a lot of middle schoolers come out on the boat in the spring and fall and look at, and we get to present a lot of lake issues. And that is a lot of fun, because when you get in high school, you know, the social issues take over and kids don't want to kind of immerse themselves in the excitement of being on the lake. But if you're a 4th or 5th grader, you know, not only do we have a great time taking them out on the lake and showing them that as Vermont residents, this is their resource, make them understand that. But to get them a little excited about science, we've sent them off the boat covered with mud, but they go home saying, Mom, you're not going to believe what we did today. So to me, that's great. It's worth the price of being here.
The Melosira is available for charter to groups or individuals for research, education, or other functions. The cost is $150 an hour. Our next segment explores part of the UVM Extension 4-H program. There are no boats, but 4-H does have classes on tractor and ATV safety, specifically for young people. When it comes to 4-H Safety Day, participants learn about safety and first aid firsthand. Keith Silva tells us more.
There you go.
A rainy day doesn't dampen the spirits of 4-Hers, especially if there's a fire to put out.
You always want to aim for the base because that's where the fire starts.
That's got it. Hey, we got a fire up here.
Proper use of a fire extinguisher is one of several trainings at 4-H Youth Farm Safety Day. Participants were also receiving instruction about tractor safety, first aid, and how to handle animals. Each workshop makes the most of 4-H's signature teaching tool, learning by doing.
So who knows how to tie slip knots?
Martha Seifert is the 4-H educator in Middlebury.
You can explain how something works, but until they actually handle it themselves and do it themselves, like I saw some of them trying to squeeze without pulling the pin on the fire extinguishers. That's a perfect example of if If we give them the hands-on training, they will know, okay, I've got to pull the pin first and then squeeze. So it's the actual experience is what triggers in their mind
nice and low.
when an event happens where they have to use it.
That's got it.
The message Seifert wants young people to take home is to slow down.
Most of the time accidents happen because you're in a hurry. So stop, think about it, and you'll still get it done. We're a life skills organization, so we're teaching the kids some life skills that they can use from here on out.
Carissa Livingston is a member of the New Haven 4-H Dairy Club. She's taking what she's learning here to heart.
It means you need to watch where everybody else is. And most of the time when things don't feel safe, which happens a lot, kind of, I just kind of stop.
Chris's sister, Braylee, is also aware of the best way to stay safe.
Stay calm, call 911, and help the people that are helping you.
It's not a good thing to be in the way of. It's
Taking part in the tractor safety workshop is Bo Jeffrey. He's sharing with the younger 4-Hers what he learned at the UVM Extension 4-H Youth Tractor Safety Certification course.
Well, since I work at a farm and drive tractors, it helps me be safe and helps keep people around me safe, I guess, too. Be aware of your surroundings, I guess.
911, fire. Okay.
4-Hers were fired up to learn about fire safety.
Okay, grab your extinguisher.
Jeff Nelson is a fire investigator in Addison County and works for cooperative insurance companies in Vermont.
Cooperative has supported UVM Extension because we feel we have similar goals to support and promote agriculture within the state of Vermont. Well, unfortunately, fire is the leading cause of death and serious injury in the U.S., even with the advent of better quality smoke detectors and better building codes, better fire safety. Unfortunately, farms are more of a risk because they have a lot more operations, they have significantly higher fuel load, they can have larger structures that are more at risk of a large fire. You can yell louder than that.
Nelson taught the pass method to use a fire extinguisher. Pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze the handle, and sweep from side to side. Nelson hopes the 4-Hers won't need this information, but if they ever do, they need to be ready.
Any young person can dial 911, and a young person can alert their family that there's a potential issue. I grew up on a farm. It was drilled into me from an early age that you're part of this farm. You are an active member. We hope that it makes a huge difference from the standpoint of teaching children that they can have an active role in the farm and farm safety. As a former 4-H'er myself, you can never start too young.
ATV, UTVs,
The farm hosting this event is Railview Dairy in New Haven. In 2014, a fire broke out here in the early morning. Don Livingston remembers that day.
We had a barn fire that, fortunately it could have been much worse. We were, very, very lucky in the fact that nobody was hurt. There was some equipment lost, there was a building lost. Our children did experience that, right from the start. I think it was a good experience for them because they could see, that accidents happen, things happen. You have to be prepared for emergencies and you have to know how to act on them.
We didn't notice at first.
Carissa Livingston, Don's daughter, has vivid memories of that day.
It was really scary and really sad. Nobody really saw it until it was almost fully engulfed. So it was kind of like a whole loss.
Some of the demonstrations at 4-H Safety Day took place in the new barn. For Dawn, the new barn is a reminder of what can happen.
We're living proof that it can happen to anybody at any time. Teaching the kids what could happen before it does and teaching them how to handle a situation is so important because if they find themselves in an emergency or in a situation, they can think back to, okay, what have I learned from 4-H and what did I learn from Farm Safety Day and what do I need to do to handle this situation? Fires can happen to anybody at any time. And just having a clinic like today to teach kids how to handle that is really important because, like I said, you just never know. Nobody is immune to it.
4-H Safety Day is one day these 4-H'ers won't forget. It's the kind of information to certainly keep in mind, just in case. In New Haven, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
To learn more about opportunities in 4-H, call the state office toll-free at 1-800-571-0668. That's 800-571-0668. And that's our program today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. I'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.